negligent homicide. As you mentioned, the judge dismissed the most serious charge in the case, second-degree manslaughter, after jurors came back twice saying they were deadlocked on it.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk with Darius. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe, comment, and share this video and share this channel. You know, in the news, one of the biggest issues right now is the Daniel Penny case in New York, where he strangled what people call mentally ill. I would say something different, but a mentally ill person who happened to be black. Daniel Penny happens to be white. Let's go ahead and check out and see what the Fox 5 has to say about this.
The judge in the Daniel Penny trial giving an unprecedented lifeline to Alvin Bragg and the prosecution. He's dismissing the most serious charge of manslaughter in the second degree after the jury was deadlocked on it all day. But Penny still faces a second lesser charge for negligent homicide. Let's go right to CB Cotton, who is live outside the courthouse in New York City. CB.
Hi, Jesse. Well, Daniel Penny's fate still hangs in limbo now that jurors return on Monday to debate whether he's guilty of that lesser charge, criminally negligent homicide. As you mentioned, the judge dismissed the most serious charge in the case, second-degree manslaughter, after jurors came back twice saying they were deadlocked on it. Around noon today was the first time that they announced they couldn't reach a unanimous decision, and the judge had to give what's called an Allen charge, which is when a judge urges jurors to go back, deliberate, try to reach a verdict. The judge overseeing the trial explained to jurors, hey, if you don't reach a unanimous decision on this charge, a new trial will be set with a new jury. But around 3 p.m., after the lunch hour, they came back deadlocked again. There was debate between prosecutors, defense attorneys, and the judge ultimately making the decision to dismiss that top charge. Since when deliberations first began on Tuesday, jurors have asked to review several pieces of video evidence in the case, parts of the medical examiner testimony, and they've asked the judge to review parts of the law. Retired New York City criminal court judge George Grasso explained to me what makes this case so hard for jurors.
Well, that's the reason why this is such a hard case for jurors acting in good faith based on the evidence presented in front of them. They start off with the premise that the defendant in this case was a good man trying to do the right thing and act as a good Samaritan and help people. And now they're being asked to potentially convict this man for manslaughter and or criminally negligent homicide. That's a hard burden that they have.
My daughter's 4 years old. I am an anti-racist educator, quote unquote. She's still watching.
And Penny still faces a potential prison sentence of up to 4 years in prison if jurors find him guilty on this lesser charge. Jesse.
All right, CB, thanks very much. Harold Ford Jr., you happen to be the only lawyer at the table. Am I right? Is there any other lawyers?
I will say this real quick before they get into it, is that I know there have already been a number of black people, black or African American, however you identify yourself, who, upon seeing the first video, or seeing the video for the first time when this first occurred, that it looks again like another white man killed another black man. And that's what happened. Now, killed, I'm gonna change that word, and some people call it unalive, so unalived another man. And it looks, if you have some background with a racism, for example, or you know somebody from back in the day who did face it, you could simply say another black man died at the hands of another white man. The hatred is real, the racism is real, whatever the case may be. You might also be a person who has the position of saying, well, you know, blacks have always been sold into slavery, been hated on. And so this is just another case of racism and hatred. Black men always, for 400 years. people who have that mentality, to me, do not have, a lot of them, I ain't gonna say all of them, but do not have it in them, or won't allow it in them to be objective and get all the information first. Now, I'm gonna say this real quick and we'll get back to the video. Do I personally believe that without social media, since it did not exist at the time or wasn't discovered 400 years ago, and for over 400 years, we had nothing, we didn't know anything about it, that a lot of egregious types of acts and crimes happened against white people by their own kind, or against black people, excuse me, and from their own kind, as well as from whites and probably some other colored people? Yes, I do. I believe the only person I believe has all the receipts, who knows who was done right, who was done wrong, when and where, is God and the Lord Jesus Christ. So this is a sad. I'm not excited to cover this video because I see both sides of it, and I want to be empathetic to both. But I will always say this: I'm on the side of truth. I don't care what your colors, your skin is. I don't care what class you're from. None of that kind of stuff. I'm always on the side of truth, whether I agree with it initially or not. So, with that said, if you can't watch this objectively, you might not want to watch this particular video, because in your mind, no matter what, Daniel Penny, the white guy, is guilty. And we just witnessed another murder at the hands of a white man. But if you're on the other side of it and you say, well, let me take a look at this information. No, I don't like that this happened again, to see another black man die. Let me get as much information as I can before I make a decision or make an emotional decision. Then I think you are, I personally believe you're on the right side of this thing.
Katie from Harvard, so
Oh, wow.
but I don't practice. Okay?
Wow.
Yes, you practice.
I defer to Kayla. I'm just a Michigan guy. Go blue. Ohio State this
Big win. All right, we're going to go Ivies over Big Ten. Fine, let's go.
Okay, so here's what I think. I know a lot of people are saying, look, this first charge dismissed, right, the 15 years. This makes it easier for the second charge to go through. Here's why I disagree. 12:30 p.m. on Outnumbered, we had a jury note that came in. And the jury note said that the jury wanted clarification on what a reasonable person standard is. This is why it's important. This goes to the negligence charge, that one carrying 4 years. And they ask you, would a reasonable average person have perceived the risk to Jordan Neely? Well, there seems to be disagreement if they need clarification on the reasonable person. I'm hopeful there. But when you look at this, the reasonable person, there were many reasonable people on that subway train. The bystanders who thanked him, the bystanders who helped him hold down Jordan Neely, the woman of color who said this, they're trying to make this about race. Well, a woman of color, that's how she self-describes, said he is a hero. It was self-defense. He is only guilty of trying to help people. Those are the reasonable people on the subway. This is a travesty. It's great news. The first charge is gone, but not a victory, a travesty. A good Samaritan being made into a bad actor, a hero into a villain. Welcome to Manhattan. The only other jurisdictions that could do this were DC and LA. So good job, Alvin Bragg.
Do you agree with Kaylee as a Michigan graduate?
The characterization of Michigan being less than an Ivy League, I'm not going to accept.
Oh, okay.
You're a swing state.
I largely agree with Kaylee. I come at it slightly different. I think that what the judge has done here is that there might be grounds for reversal if he's convicted of anything, because you can't go through a trial and then allow the prosecution to say, we believe that one of the charges, because the jury can't come to a conclusion, should be dismissed. I think the judge, I'm going to be curious to see once we get more information about how the judge came to this decision. Two, what I don't quite understand, I've followed this case. I'm obviously not on a jury and have not received all of the evidence and don't have all of the things that they've seen. But if indeed Kaylee's right, a reasonable person, if he grabbed that guy because the guy was threatening everybody, and he doesn't let up, or say he did let up, and the guy pretended that he was down or was suffering, and he lets up, and the guy stabs him, stabs Daniel Penny.
That's exactly right.
So Daniel Penny, I don't know. I think
that's a very good, interesting point that Harold brings up. I can guarantee this based on what I've seen the media do. If this story had turned out exactly as Harold just described, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Because my view in observing how since the advent of Black Lives Matter, and again, people who've gone through racial situations at times, is my contention that if Daniel had been the one, let's say it was a black man, that the Mr. Jordan Neely, if he was the one, Daniel was the one wielding the knife. He was out of his mind, they say, and on top of it has all those prior convictions. Because this is what people have said. Jordan has all those prior convictions, and people say, "Oh, that don't matter. He still didn't deserve to die." Okay. By the way, he also tried to kidnap, I think it was a 7-year-old or a 12-year-old little girl, to kidnap and rape. Okay. At the very least, we know if you're going to kidnap a child, especially in today's climate, they raping them and possibly murdering them. But people don't want to talk about that part. But anyway, if the roles were reversed, and if this man Jordan Neely had gotten up and stabbed Daniel Penny, he was stabbed or lost his life, I can assure you there will be no racial claims. The outrage would nowhere be near this. Because let's be honest, white folks don't scream white people do not scream, or Caucasians do not scream racism like blacks do. Okay, most other races don't. The only two primarily that have been, and its history has proven it to be true, by the way, but I don't subscribe to it always being the case. But the blacks and the Jews have really been the most attacked. Some of the most attacked, the two most attacked ethnicities, I believe, based on my knowledge. So this would not be the same. This would not be a discussion. I just don't believe it for 1 second. So people, in other words, don't really believe in justice like they pretend to do.
It was unfair to even who had brought these charges. You make the case basically to anyone in New York, and for that matter, this is a precedent that can be cited anywhere, that someone trying to protect someone on a train. I have kids, right? I have a 10-year-old and 9. We live in New York City. My wife and I, we live in New York City. I take the train. And if my wife and kids are on a train and someone is behaving like that, and someone steps up to protect those on a train, I'd be damned. As a New York taxpayer, I'd want to see that person prosecuted based on these facts. So Michigan versus Harvard, I'd say it's a tie.
I agree.
As we get here at 5 o'clock.
And the mayor is getting involved. Katie, let's listen to what Adams has to say.
We've always asked New Yorkers, you see something, say something, do something. And New Yorkers have always had the spirit and energy to come to their fellow New Yorkers. And we have to be honest about the severe mental health crisis that we're facing. And this young man was part of that problem. He was in revolving door mental health system.
Using the right weight matters. The body pod lets you easily understand what is the fastest way to...
Katie.
Well, I'm glad that the mayor is defending Daniel Penny. This is a case that should have never been brought. In fact, it's a case that sat at the police department for nearly 2 weeks. But then when the social justice woke mob showed up to protest, that's when Alvin Bragg decided to give in to mob justice, and bring these bogus charges against Daniel Penny, who is a hero who's had to go through this for the last year of his life. It's totally changes everything when it comes to the consequences of this. Now nobody wants to help on the subway because is it really worth being made an example of in Manhattan and New York City to have your life torn apart this way? You know, Alvin Bragg has a habit of either undercharging or not charging criminals like Jordan Neely, who was in and out of the system, had a long rap sheet, while overcharging good Samaritans and good people who want to help their fellow citizens like Daniel Penny. And so now you have this judge pushing this till Monday when the first charge was dropped at 4 p.m. on a Friday. Used to be that you would work until you were done. So now this has to sit for the weekend. They're trying to squeeze out a guilty charge on the second charge, basically saying, well, they didn't get him on the first one, so now maybe they can get him on the second one. And the consequences of this for the entire country are so far-reaching in terms of what this man has been through. And the people who will suffer the most, of course, Daniel Penny is one of them, but it's the people on the train who will be at risk to these criminals who will now be able to say, well, I'm not the one who's going to be charged. In fact, people can go as a mob to the police station and to Alvin Bragg's office and demand that good people are charged when it's clearly, obviously self-defense, should have never happened. And they're not going to do anything, which means there'll be more innocent victims as a result of just bringing this case in the first place.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters,
man,
along with Katie.
Let me find that. I went all the way. Let me go back. I'm glad I saw that. I didn't try to hit that. Let's see, Katie. Let's go right where Katie's at. Okay. So we might have to come back to what she said.
Well, I'm not the one.
But anyway, let me go back to this real quick. To her point, to Katie's point. I was just thinking about this a little while ago. Cases like this, whether Danny is Daniel Penny, whether he is convicted or he is innocent, he's set free. What they have just done is they set the stage for a lot more crime happening, because I don't feel comfortable trying to help someone if I see them in danger, and someone's walking around and I have the ability to neutralize the target, so to speak, neutralize the threat, excuse me. And with this in my mind, that the police could come after me for being a good Samaritan, so to speak. I'm not trying to be a hero, but be a good Samaritan. And I'm trying to help because I'm thinking if I had somebody I know was in a situation, I would, like Harold said earlier, I would want someone who is capable and the conditions would allow for him or her to interfere. I would want them to protect my loved ones. I would want them to try to do something right there rather than just let people be like lambs led to the slaughter. But they have set a precedent. They're telling you that masculinity, they're telling you that the color of your skin, they're telling you that being a hero or heroine or a female hero is punishable, is a crime and is punishable, therefore punishable. But if you are a criminal, they're going to protect your right to be a criminal. And even if you injure someone or cause the life of someone else, you're going to get off, because it's happening all over the place. That's the precedent that's being set. And so they're trying to deter people from interfering in crimes that are taking place and just let them happen. And some of the same people who are crying and complaining, saying Daniel Penny should be behind prison bars. I heard another BLM. Oh, BLM is back in the spotlight. The thieves are back. The gaslighters are back in the spotlight. I do not respect that foolish organization at all. And the people who contributed to BLM, why haven't y'all called them on the carpet when you found out, it came out front page news, that $90 million went missing, and some of that money can be found in nice homes and mansions that were purchased by those so-called founders? None of these, well, I would say none, because I don't, but most of these fools, some of the celebrities have not come out and held these people to account. Okay, all that money that's supposed to support black lives. Have y'all gone back to any of those neighborhoods to see if the neighborhood has benefited from all those donations? Those who've donated, no, I did not, and I would not. Those who donated, have you actually asked yourself, why did I give to this organization? Why did they misplace my trust? Why did they come up with this crazy, how come they used and abused a narrative for their own selfish gain? How come those questions aren't being asked? The media, sure, the mainstream media sure won't go back and do their due diligence. I do not trust them. They're a bunch of crooks and criminals, and I pray to God for justice. I ain't playing. Justice at every single level. Because of this game people keep playing, going back and forth, or you want justice in this situation, but you don't want justice in that situation. You know, we're playing favorites, picking and choosing. What do you call it? A selective memory, selective crimes. We don't want this crime prosecuted, but we want this one. And because you're black, we want this crime. We'll hire you because you're black, but we won't. But if we fire you because you're black, we're racist. So I'm not a racist for hiring you because you're black, but I am a racist for hiring you because you're black. Aren't both equal? It just doesn't benefit the other side, the black person. If you're black, you can commit a crime. Because here's another question. All this talk about Black Lives Matter, where are these same Black Lives Matter supporters, founders, and donators in the black neighborhoods where on a weekly, if not a daily basis, black on black crime is prevalent. How come that's not being promoted all over the television? How come we're not raising money and saying the names and coming up with t-shirts and slogans and stuff for those slain children, the teenagers, and the innocent bystanders when drive-bys happen or when they get into fights with each other? I mean, I know you can come up with the argument and say every nationality has that fight. Well, how come in this conversation that's never brought up? We're selective in our so-called outrages. We should be held accountable. We as a people should be held accountable. Because right now, at the time of this video, I'm quite sure, and this is a Saturday night, I'm quite sure and confident in black neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods, crimes are taking place. Drugs, fights, gang banging, shootings and injuries, shootings and death. And y'all won't see it on national television.
One who's going to be charged. In fact, people can go as a mob to the police station and to Alvin Bragg's office and demand that good people are charged when it's clearly, obviously self-defense, should have never happened. And they're not going to do anything, which means there'll be more innocent victims as a result of just bringing this case in the first place.
Joey Jones. Yeah, I think this is a case where and this is not an original idea. I was talking to a friend just before the show, and he brought it up. Like, you're looking at the intent of the law versus the letter of the law. If you ask those same 12 jurors with the amount of evidence they've been shown today, and you present it to them and you said, should we indict him? You could probably get a unanimous no. But now that you've given them the facts and you've given them this second charge that is, I guess, ambiguous to say the least, there may be several people there that say this guy did the right thing, but by this law and these facts, we're going to have to convict him. And that's the real travesty here, is that you have a charge written in such a way that you can justify it with less facts than you should have to have more behind you there. I think some of the things that really hurt him is just about every witness that came up that said something the defense could use also said something the prosecution could use. Like the Marine combat instructor, ultimately the question was asked, did he do it correctly? And I think he said no, or he said something along the lines of he should have let up, at some point. And so there may be this narrow path there to where this jury feels compelled to convict on this second charge simply because they're being asked to, as opposed to, are they being asked, is it right to put him in this situation to begin with? That's how I see it. Listen, this is not a regular citizen. This is a United States Marine that our federal government paid and programmed to stand up and do the right thing, even at his own detriment. On the battlefield, he gets a Bronze Star for that. Mm-hmm. In New York City, he gets what? 15 to 4 years in prison.
Yeah. Great point.
And so that just, it pisses me off, but it also blows my mind. Where I live in Georgia, I probably could have been justified at pulling a firearm on that guy if I felt like he was coming at me at any moment. We weren't there, so we don't know if he ever made this motion. We don't know if there was ever a specific point, but if there was any point like that, in my state, I'm justified to use a firearm to protect myself. And in this city, using the least lethal method, they're going to throw you in jail? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's horse crap is what it is.
And on top of it, if this was a white on white or a black on black crime, we would not even be discussing this issue. It would not have made front page news. But because they know they can gaslight black Americans, African American people. Again, there are times, listen, I've said this before in other videos, I have experienced being prejudiced against or racism in my professional career at one point or another. I have. I know people personally who have also. But I was never taught, and I think my dad did a great job of this. My dad never taught me and my brothers or my sister to be a bunch of victims. Recognize what's out there in the real world. But it never taught us to be victims. We're victors. We're to be successful. We're to do the best we can with God's help in any endeavor that we put our hands to, but to stay aware of the real world. So am I one of those people who say racism does not exist just because I don't have a few statistics? No, I'm not one of those people. People are people. But I've also been taught, we have been taught to be people of truth, of honesty, of righteousness and justice. I want justice in this situation. Me personally, if I was on that train and I was not capable or able to interfere in that situation and possibly spare, especially, see, once again, if you don't get all the information, you can just go off and get all outraged about this because it was a black man who was unfortunately killed by a white man. But I would personally be even more outraged if a black man did to another black man. You say, why? Because it's one thing. Let's just say this was really a racially profiled situation. Let's just say the white man don't like blacks and he took this guy out. At least I know that the white man is my enemy. What's more dangerous to me is when you don't know that those who look like you, who standing behind your back, they are actually an enemy as well. Those are more dangerous to me. I can see my enemy coming over there who has announced himself and showed himself to be an enemy. But the person who supposedly showed himself to be a friend turns around and literally stabs me in the back. He is more dangerous, or she is more dangerous.
What the court has done is terrible. I mean, I really do think this is grounds for reversal, what this judge has done. You can't just throw everything at the spaghetti on the wall, and then when the jury is deliberating, it's not going your way. So we'll pull that one down so the others. So I hope that the right thing happens here, but if it doesn't, this is certainly grounds for reversal, if not.
And this isn't a pardonable situation, right?
No.
Because it's state.
It's state. Kathy Hochul could do it. Do you think she will?
No.
Kathy?
Kathy, it's in your hands. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News.
Let me know what you think in the comments. I've said a lot about it. It's no, I don't hide from my emotions. If I'm wrong about it, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong about it, let me know what you think. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. But regardless, I believe I'm being very objective about the situation and fair to the situation. I want what's right, the truth. I don't care if it goes with or against the narrative. I'm all about the truth. Like, comment, subscribe, share the channel. Share this video. Remember, King Jesus loves you, and so do I.